Okay, so we're on lesson 4.1. This is page 80. This video is going to be the middle of page 80 and the top of page 81. And what we're doing here is we're multiplying fractions and whole numbers. To multiply a fraction by a whole number, you write the whole number as a fraction and then multiply the two fractions. Now some kids are going to say, well, how do you write a whole number as a fraction? Well, we're going to do that here in just a couple minutes. And then we use the GCF to write the product in simplest form. So it's really the same thing as we've already learned. It's just going to look a little bit different. So let's check out example 2. And example 2 starts with an estimation. The word problem reads, a class has 18 students. The teacher asks how many students in the class have pets and finds 5/9 of the students have pets. How many students have pets? So what you would do is you'd find 5/9 of 18. And one thing to do is to estimate first. So we're going to estimate by rounding 5/9 to a half. 5/9 is close to a half. And we're going to end up doing a half times 18. And a half of times 18 is the same thing as a half of 18. Half of 18 is 9. So the answer is not going to be exactly 9, it's going to be about 9. This squiggly equal sign right here means about. So the answer is going to be about 9. Not exactly, but close. Now what we're going to do is we're going to multiply. And this is where it gets just a little bit tricky looking, but the math is actually super simple. So we know the answer should be about 9. But check out what you do here. So this is the problem, 5/9 times 18. The very first sentence said that you write the whole number as a fraction. And you learned at the beginning of this module that every whole number can be written as a fraction over 1. So that's the first trick, is right off the bat you make it into a fraction. So I'm actually going to kind of rewrite this. I think I'm going to go ahead and block some of the stuff off and rewrite it and show you what I would do if I had a whiteboard. So the problem you know is 5/9 times 18. And it looks kind of funny until you make it 18 over 1. Now I have two numerators and two denominators. Now the more difficult way to do this would be to multiply your numerator. 5 times 18 you get 90. Over 9 times 1 you get 9. And then to simplify that, 90 and 9 share a factor of 9, so we divide by 9 and we get 10 over 1, which is the same thing as 10. And you remember a minute ago we estimated, we say the answer should be about 9. Well, 10 is about 9. So the answer here is 10 students have pets. I want to show you what I could have done instead of, go ahead and erase this right here. 10's the answer, I'm not saying it's not, but one thing you could have done was simplify at the beginning. Do you remember how I showed you that you can look diagonally? 5 and 1 don't share a factor, but 9 and 18 do. 9 and 18 simplify. 9 can go into itself once, and 9 can go into 18 twice. And look at how easy that is. If you simplify diagonally, that makes that problem super easy. 5 times 2 is 10. Over 1 times 1 is 1. The answer to 10 over 1 is 10. 10 students have pets. Alright, so the main thing here to learn is when you get a fraction times a whole number, you immediately make the whole number into a fraction over 1. So let's go ahead and see if we can try this. This video will continue on. We're going to then go now to the top of page 81. We'll start with the reflect and then we'll go on. So question number 7 says, is the product, if you don't know what product means, that means the answer, is the answer of a fraction less than 1 and a whole number greater than or less than the whole number, and explain. So here's what this is asking. It seems a little bit confusing, but here's what this is asking. Is the product, so we don't know. We don't know if the product's going to be greater than or less than the whole number. But it says it's the product of a fraction less than 1 and a whole number greater than or less than the whole number. So this is exactly what we just did. We just did a fraction like 5/9 times 18. And reread it one more time. Is the product, the answer right here, we're going to get an answer. Is the product going to be greater than or less than the whole number? Well, when you multiply, the answer is almost always greater than the factors. But in this case, the answer is going to be, well, we just did this on the previous page. 5/9 times 18 is 10. In this case, it's less than. And that's kind of the deal here. When you multiply by a fraction, the product will be less than the whole number. And that's what we want to write here. When you multiply a whole number by a fraction, the product will be less than the whole number. And the reason why it's not the same as when you multiply by whole numbers is that if you multiply by whole numbers, if you multiply by 2, you're going to double your factor. If you multiply by 3, you're going to triple your factor. But in this case, we actually multiply by a number that's less than 1. When you multiply by a fraction, the product becomes less than the whole number. It's kind of backwards. All right, so let's go ahead and try the your turn. And I'm going to use a whiteboard. Now, if you feel good about what I just showed you at the beginning of this video, you should try these. It looks like numbers 8, and here's a hint. If you just forgot, here's a hint. If you take number 8 and you put 24 over 1, it should be a pretty simple problem. If you take number 9 and you put 20 over 1, it should be a pretty simple problem. If you can remember that, you should be able to get those first, at least maybe 4. You might get a little bit stuck on numbers 12 and 13. Either way, you should try what you can without the video, and then when you're ready to either check your answers or when you're ready to get a hint, you can resume the video. Okay, so this is page 81. We're on the your turn, and we're going to multiply the fractions by whole numbers, and then we're going to write our answers in simplest form. All right, so number 8 is 5/8 times 24. And remember that in order to multiply a fraction by a whole number, we immediately take the whole number and we make it a fraction over 1. And now I could do 5 times 24, which is going to be kind of a large number, over 8. But it'd be better for me to look diagonally. 5 and 1, they don't share a factor, but 8 and 24 do. 8 and 24 are each divisible by 8. 8 can go into itself once, and 8 can go into 24 3 times. So 24 over 8 would simplify to 3 over 1. And look at how simple this is. I now have 5 times 3 is 15. Over 1 times 1 is 1. And 15 over 1 is the same as 15. The answer to number 8 is 15. Let's check out number 9. I'm going to do 3/5 times 20 over 1. I'm just going to immediately put 20 over 1. I could do 3 times 20. I could do this one without simplifying right now. It's just not easier. Watch. 3 times 20 is 60. And 5 times 1 is 5. And 60 and 5 are each divisible by 5. 60 divided by 5 is 12. And 5 divided by 5 is 1. And 12 over 1 is equal to 12. I could have remember how I simplified by 5 right here? I could have simplified by 5 right here. I could have done 20 divided by 5 is 4. And 5 divided by 5 is 1. And 3 times 4 is 12. That would have been probably a little faster. Let's check out number 10. Number 10 is 1/3. Oops, I got the 3 in the wrong spot. It's 1/3 times 8 over 1. 8 becomes 8 over 1. And nothing simplifies. I can't simplify 8 and 8, and I can't simplify 1 and 1. So I'm going to do 1 times 8 is 8. And 3 times 1 is 3. And 8 over 3 is an improper fraction, so I'm going to rewrite that as a mixed number. 8 divided by 3 is 2, with 2 left over. 2 and 2/3. That's the answer to this one. All right, number 11 is 1/4 of or times 14. 14 can be written as 14 over 1. I could simplify the 14 and the 4 now. I could divide those each by 2, or I can just, it won't really matter. I can just multiply my numerators. 1 times 14 is 14. And 4 times 1 is 4. And you could choose to either divide those by 2, or you can simply say 14 divided by 4. 14 divided by 4 is 3. Because 3 times 4 is 12, with 2 left over. So it's 3 2/4, which is not quite in simplest form. That simplifies to 3 1/2. All right. So let's check out numbers 12 and 13. These look a little bit different. The first 4 problems we did were just a fraction multiplied by a whole number. And in order to make it a fraction times a fraction, you simply take the whole number and write it over 1. And we can do that with some of these terms. Let's check out number 12. We've got 3 7/10 times 7. We can just make that 7 over 1. But this is the first time that you've been asked to do a mixed number. And so my question is that what do we need here? Well, all these previous problems, we had a numerator over a denominator times a numerator over a denominator. And now in this problem right here, we have a whole number. So the way I like you to think of it is we got to get rid of that whole number. Well, do you know how to do that? You do, you just may not remember because we've practiced this. So what you do is you actually take this and turn it into an improper fraction. Watch how I do this. 3 times 10 is 30, plus 7 is 37. That can be rewritten as 37 tenths. Now I just have a numerator and a denominator. I'm going to multiply that by 7 over 1. So this one needs to get changed into an improper fraction, and this one gets changed into a fraction over 1. Now, you can look to see if anything simplifies. 7 and 10 do not. 37 and 1 do not. So I'm going to multiply my numerators together, and I'm going to multiply my denominators together, and that's real simple. 10 times 1 is 10. Now I just need to do 37 times 7. And that's super messy, so I need to clean that up. 7 times 7 is 49. 7 times 3 is 21. Plus 4 is 25, so I get 259. 259 over 10, and that's a lot easier to deal with than you actually think. 10 goes into 259 25 times, with 9 left over, so it's 25 and 9 tenths. This next one's a little bit easier. Check out this one. This one's pretty simple, in fact. Remember the steps that we just did? We turn it into an improper fraction of 2 times 10 is 20, plus 3 is 23. 23 over 10 times, this is going to be 10 written over 1. Now I could do 10 times 23 and 10 times 1, but I can also just simplify the 10s. 10 and 10 share a factor of 10, so I can simplify those to 1. And I'll have 23 times 1 over 1 times 1. 23 over 1 is the same as 23. Now I know this gets complicated and you'll get some more instruction on that later. But you at least got an introduction on how to multiply mixed numbers and whole numbers. Okay, good job. You're done with this video. The next video will go on to the rest of the page.